Might ask you to put on your suspenders of disbelief. Hold your crazy pants up with your suspenders of disbelief. Welcome to the edge of nowhere. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Side Trail number 47 for the Monster Lore Tour Paranormal Deep Dives from the Edge of Nowhere podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Carr, here along with the man in my mirror, Mr. Matt Ozero, a.k.a. the Moz.
Yeah, very Mozomantium.
You like that? You're like my reverse doppelganger.
I'm Smoky Mirror, yeah. I'm Quetzalcoatl.
We're the same being spun the other way.
Yes, and that also works for your propulsion theory as well.
Ooh. See, it all ties together. It's the paranormal theory of everything we're building here at Monster Lore Tour.
And that's why we're paranormal life partners, as you say.
Yeah.
Which I don't
Fellow paranerdalists.
Paranerdalists.
Yeah.
And you coined that phrase, right?
I did, I believe. I had personally never heard it before.
I like it, so let's say I coined it.
Well, considering we share a brain,
see?
I don't see how it really makes a difference.
There you go.
That's why you're the man in my mirror.
I was baiting you, and you passed that test.
I'm looking to the man in the mirror to run this side trail for us because it was your episode.
That is true.
You see how seamless that segue was?
Yeah, and we didn't actually prepare any of that.
I have no idea what we're talking about, even.
That's awesome.
So what are we talking about, Moz?
It made no sense to me, like most of our stuff. Because we don't prepare really anything. So
it's like my life is one long Satori moment, just enlightenment assailing me from all sides.
Yeah, that's your theory. I have another theory that involves, hallucinogenics, but
those are fun too.
That's your positive negativa.
Yeah.
Wait, negativa. Via negativa version. There you go. Yep. I am ready when you are, sir. If you want to deep dive, am I supposed to just start?
This has started already.
Wow.
Yeah.
How are we doing?
That whole all right thing I did,
This isn't us just bantering before. Okay, I'll start. But reading today, we never know. I never know with us.
Side trails are fun.
This is the way we do any podcast. It's no different.
Is this thing on?
But anyway.
Hello. Oh, no. All right. Far too silly for the beginning of a side trail right now.
This podcast is getting far too silly. Now, I read the Drudge headlines this morning around 10:15 a.m. This is all news to you, by the way.
Okay.
And I read that there was a white buffalo born.
Oh.
Yeah. And basically in Yellowstone National Park this week.
Whoa.
So that was my...
What is that a sign of right now?
Well, that's what we're doing a side trail about.
Is the volcano about to blow?
Well, it's funny you say that because that was my first thought.
Yeah.
That is my first thought.
That's kind of a harbinger, isn't it? The white buffalo being born?
That's what the side trail's about. You want to jump right to the end?
Oh.
The end.
Thanks for coming, everybody. I'm sorry, Maz. I always do. I always do that to you. I'm and done.
And done.
Okay, you go. I'll shut up now.
You were basically going to be here in about 45 minutes, and I decided this was going to be the side trail. Thankfully, you, as usual, didn't show up on time, so it gave me time to finish this.
I gave you a whole extra, 2 hours.
I didn't even need it. I was done in an hour, dude.
Oh, nice.
So, but really, because I already have a buffalo file, so I just had to look through it. But basically, of course I do. And you have it too, because you back up the stuff. So basically, I pulled up my buffalo file, and I decided this is important. We talk about a lot of Native American folklore.
White buffalo being born is a big deal. That's a big deal.
Yeah, so I wanted to cover it. So basically, it's in theexpress.com this morning. Rare white buffalo at Yellowstone National Park fulfills Native American prophecy. World News. This will be in the show notes. rare white buffalo born in Yellowstone National Park, fulfilling a prophecy of one of the largest Native American tribes. The white calf was spotted on June 4th in the Lamar Valley in the northeastern corner of the park by an outdoor photographer. Aaron Bratine of Kalispell, who was visiting the park with her family, took several shots of the calf after spotting it among a herd of bison across the Lamar River. Before we get to going, I figured we'd do a really quick recap because we've mentioned the buffalo a lot for just one season of episodes. The buffalo has poked its head in to a lot of our discussions. Do you remember anything? Probably not.
The one that's coming to my mind is Greg's interview.
Yes, that is one of them. Greg, our friend during an interview, saw kind of an astrally buffalo leaving a house of someone who then soon passed away.
Yeah.
So it was a really weird, portendy, spectral buffalo. And the reason he knew it was spectrally is because he knew there were fences and bushes and hedges, and this thing went straight across the land.
Right, it took off running, and it went right through all the fences, and the fences weren't broken or anything after.
Right.
So that was episode 41.
Well,
Rock Shop Greg's Ghosts and Goblin Stories.
Well done, sir. And my, couple episodes back of mine, Where Crocodiles, the Merz study talked about with West Bend and the Bebe Libe. That group in Africa felt the buffalo was one of the more powerful totems and shapeshiftery things. Right. So we mentioned it there. And I think we mentioned the Buffalo Maiden from Teresa Pajon's work. We've talked about her a few times from White Wolf Woman. So I think I had a comment from that. Greg Horn, as you mentioned, we talked about his little sighting. Joseph Campbell has an account of Buffalo Woman, which I believe we talked about as well.
Okay.
I think we discussed this in an episode. A beautiful woman appears in the desert, warm colitas rising up through the air kind of thing.
Yeah.
And basically, two Native Americans approach her, and one of them is enamored with her beauty and hits on her, and he just turns into a pile of bones at her feet. Do you remember that story? Does that ring a bell?
I do not.
Yeah, I don't remember. I wish I knew the episode.
We've been through so much in the last year.
We have. But the other one basically goes back to the village with her. He brings her back to the village, and she's the one who gives, the peace pipe, and she's the one who relays all this wisdom of rituals and all this sacred stuff. Mm-hmm. Lame Deer, by the way, who we've mentioned, and again, we may have mentioned this part. Yeah. Sioux Medicine Man, he goes into this great detail about the ritual. And he goes into great detail about her, and he goes into, but the end of that tale I found in Flight of the Wild Gander, and I think we talked about this, not sure, but this is the end from the Joseph Campbell version from Flight of the Wild Gander. The Wakan woman, at the end of her ceremony, promises to be back at the end of each age, and again at the end I shall return. She then shapeshifts into a buffalo calf, turned into a young red and brown buffalo, and then rolled around and stood up as a white buffalo, finally restored to her eternal position.
Mm-hmm.
Both Pawnee and Sioux declare that their cosmic buffalo, the father and grandfather of the universe, stands at the cosmic gate through which the game animals pour into this temporal world and back through which they go when they are slain to be reborn. And in the course of the cycle of the 4 world stages, with the passage of each year, the master buffalo sheds on hair, and with the passage of each of the world ages, 1 leg. So so again, you get the portal guardian aspect. This is potentially like the Happy Hunting Grounds, and there's a buffalo at the kind of, we have the cherub with the flaming sword at the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
They have this white buffalo, again at the cosmological center of the medicine wheel kind of thing. And this one is from Lame Deer. This is from Lame Deer, Seeker of Visions. The buffalo gave us everything we needed. Without it, we were nothing. Our teepees were made of his skin. His hide was our bed, our blanket, our winter coat. It was our drum throbbing through the night, alive, holy. Out of his skin we made our water bags. His flesh strengthened us, became flesh of our flesh. Not the smallest part of it was wasted. His stomach, a red-hot stone dropping into it, became our soup kettle. His horns were our spoons. The bones our knives, our women's awls and needles. Out of his sinew we made our bowstrings and thread. His ribs were fashioned into sleds for our children. His hooves became rattles. His mighty skull with the pipe leaning against it was our sacred altar. The name of the greatest of all Sioux was Tatanka Yawatka, or Sitting Bull. When you killed off the buffalo, you also killed the Indian, the real, natural, wild Indian. That's again lame deer seeker of visions.
That's why the Western settlers killed the buffalo, because they knew it would kill the Indian.
Well, but again, it goes back to...
You really want to get into it.
These ancient dealios with animals. Each tribe seems to have this connection, and they really, more than anything, identify with a specific animal.
It's that foundation totem, the totem at the bottom of their poles,
right,
kind of thing, yeah.
Right. With the Hoika, we talk about the wolf shaman. With the Tlingit, we talk about the otter. We talk about all these different groups that connect.
And when you get the North American plains people, it's the buffalo.
Yeah.
Because that's what there was.
Yep. Again, another call back to our ancient tribes and those weird associations. Again, the themes that keep coming back is, I guess, what's getting to me a little bit. I mean, we knew they were there. I didn't know how prevalent they were.
Right.
As we keep talking about this stuff. Here's lame deer again. The Omaha tribe had a legend about the Pipestone Quarry. They say that long ago there was an Omaha woman called Wahigala. She was married to a Sioux warrior. One day she found herself face to face with a white buffalo. She followed the sacred animal as if in a trance. She watched the buffalo kicking loose large chunks of red stone and knew right away that these were the petrified bodies of her forebears.
Whoa.
In this way she discovered the quarry. The Sioux and the Omahas were enemies, but they agreed that they would never fight each other at this sacred place. The land belonged to the Sioux, but the stone belonged to all Indians who honored the pipe. So that's, again, that peace pipe component to it.
Sharing of resources.
In the Black Elk vision, he talks about a red bison man a lot, but I still think his powerful vision is an important message for all mankind. We can probably use a little of that after reading some of those other Drudge headlines today.
Oh, yeah.
But I do want to
mad world.
I do love Neihart's Black Elk Speaks, and I think it's appropriate to try to read at least the heart of Black Elk's most famous vision.
Sure.
And when I looked down upon my people yonder, the cloud passed over, blessing them with friendly rain, and stood in the east with a flaming rainbow over it. Then all the horses went singing back to their places beyond the summit of the fourth ascent, and all things sang along with them as they walked. And a voice said, all over the universe they have finished a day of happiness. And looking down I saw that the whole wide circle of the day was a beautiful and green, with all fruits growing and all things kind and happy. Then a voice said, behold this day, for it is yours to make. Now you shall stand upon the center of the earth to see, for there they are taking you. I was still on my bay horse, and once more I felt the riders of the west, the north, the east, the south behind me, in formation as before, and we were going east. I looked ahead and saw the mountains, where the rocks and forests on them, and from the mountains flashed all colors upwards to the heavens. Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and around about beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in a sacred manner the shapes of all things in the spirit, and the shape of all shapes as they must live together like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that made one circle, wide as daylight and as starlight, and in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father, and I saw that this was holy. Then I stood there, 2 men were coming from the east, head first like arrows flying, and between them rose the daybreak star. They came and gave a herb to me and said, with this on earth you shall undertake anything and do it. It was the daybreak star herb, and the herb of understanding, and they told me to drop it on the earth. I saw it falling far. When it struck the earth, it rooted and grew and flowered. 4 blossoms on one stem, a blue, a white, a scarlet, and a yellow. And the rays from these streamed upwards to the heavens, so that all creatures saw it, and in no place was there darkness. Now, there's a lot of bison imagery in the rest of his stuff, too. He usually talks about a red bison, if I remember correctly. But I thought, we've basically got some stuff coming, and you wanted to know if it was a good or a bad omen. We're going to get to that.
So that was about the plant right there, though.
Well,
And honestly, for me, that almost sounds like the folklore of marijuana in a way. The plant that fills in those spaces in our minds and whatnot. But I do like the overtones of the whole all is one thing going on there as well, how all of our hoops are just part of one big circle.
And that is the heart of the Black Elk's vision, is the hoops within hoops, and all tribes being all people being the smaller hoops, tribes being the bigger hoops, then they're all interlocking as these.
We're all just
almost Olympic style.
Yeah, we're all just little pieces of the same whole.
Yeah. So, if you ever get a chance, Neihardt's version, Black Elk Speaks, very powerful book. But again, since it's a momentous moment in Native American prophecy, I thought we'd come. I just wanted to share one of my favorites.
That was beautiful, yeah.
And again, from the same area, the Sioux. We're talking about a lot. The Lakota and the Sioux are going to come into this as similar tribes, similar area, and similar vision. But to bring it full circle, as only appropriate with this subject matter, we come to Chief Arvol Looking Horse. He is a spiritual leader of the Lakota, the Dakota, and the Nakota. By the way, he's the guy who keeps the sacred peace pipe, the very one handed to the tribe by Buffalo White Woman, I believe.
Oh, wow.
But here's the chief. 19 generations ago, the beautiful spirit we now refer to as White Buffalo Calf Woman brought the sacred Sinapo, sacred pipe, to our people. She taught the people the 7 sacred rites and how to walk on Mother Earth in a sacred manner. Petit San Winyan. As she left, she turned into a young, beautiful white buffalo, and then she walked over. She gifted us with the 7 sacred rites that still sustain our people today. The person who smokes the sacred pipe achieves union with all beings. By smoking this Sianapu, you will make direct personal contact with the great mystery. Following the way of this sacred Sianapu, you will walk in a sacred way upon the earth. And for the earth is your grandmother and your mother, and she is sacred. Chief Arvol Looking Glass.
So this sounds all very shamanic and very Mozish fashion. Very ceremonial, hallucinogenic sort of overtones here, almost very ayahuasca, like they're talking about this plant that's connecting them to higher levels of consciousness, basically, right? Going through rituals.
Yeah, well, the white calf buffalo woman basically comes into the tribe.
And the white buffalo is the one who taught them this.
She turns into it at the end of some of the tales.
Right.
It's one and the same. She is the portal guardian. And the two that come to the beginning of the story, when 2 men approach, one fails that audition, he is turned to bones at her feet under a mist.
Right.
She is the Axis Mundi. She's the center of the medicine wheel. My understanding of this,
the source of the medicine, basically.
She is basically the center. She's the tree. She's the calf.
And she is the white buffalo.
She's the center, and she stands for peace, and she is the white buffalo. Yeah, so she is the sacred, and she tells folks how to walk among the sacred and how to be, and she gives the peace pipe and how to do the important rituals.
So when you add it all up, basically, the white buffalo is a symbol of the spirit that taught the people how to, or basically defined the sacred, taught the people what sacred was and how to approach it properly, basically.
Yeah, and like you said,
they taught them how to live. It's the connection to the spirit.
And the connection to their totem and the connection to all this portal business and this next level and these next, the next stage of life, the afterlife, how to live in this life, how to make that good transition to the next life. And again, this is just my interpretation. If I'm getting anything wrong, we only prepared this today because it happened today, but these are near and dear themes to my heart, so I definitely understand at least pieces and components of what they're speaking to. And again, I don't want to step on any of the Volkadank, and if there's specifics that I'm getting wrong, please let us know.
monsterloretour@gmail.com.
But basically the message from this week, that we do get a message from Chief Arvol on this event and on this day. He comments in this article, the same guy who is the owner of the sacred peace pipe. He comments on the birth of the white buffalo.
Oh, wow.
He says, the birth of this calf is both a blessing and a warning. we must do more.
Yeah.
And we must do more. I'm with him. Like, I think, obviously, if we as a group that live on this country are approaching that portal guardian, we are going to be the bones at the feet.
Yeah.
We're not passing that test.
We need to relearn what sacred means.
Yeah.
Because our culture no longer knows what that word means.
Yeah. Not even
we really don't.
A little bit.
We don't understand what sacred means.
Yeah. No. And I think at the end, we must do more. He tips his hand a little bit. He may not be thinking, this is hey, everyone, this is great.
Yeah, this is a harbinger is what this is.
Well, and then it goes back to your original full circle again. It's happening at Yellowstone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, maybe you talk about the eclipse in the full article or in the full podcast where you have to sit and reset.
Yeah.
Maybe the super volcano is the reset.
That's the ultimate reset.
The ultimate
That's
reset.
the reset button.
Yeah. Well, I keep coming back to the Cree and Paul Levy's book on the Wetiko, where the first folks that the Cree who, when they first met the white folks, said, these guys are crazy. They just want everything. They just need everything. They want everything. They're not in tune with anything. Like,
They said
let's
we
stay
were
away.
broken. Yeah.
We're broken. Stay away from them.
They literally said their brains are broken.
Yeah. And,
And
it was
yeah,
a good, it was a good assessment at the time.
it seems very apt.
Seems very apt. So I'm in agreement that maybe this isn't the best of portents. And I hope it is, because we all like to have hope. I think you're a little bit more positive.
I've been
future
wondering
than I am.
for decades now how it would actually end. And that volcano's been at the top of my list. And this white buffalo really freaks me out right now.
Well, sorry
That's a
about
little
that.
scary.
Well, again, though, this is a sacred animal, and in some ways, something wondrous and something good happened today. And in some ways, that road from hate to love, we do have to not lose sight of that.
True. We got to keep trying to get to that love before the hate wins.
Exactly.
And just for the record, today, as of recording, today is June 13th. This isn't. Let's see when this.
June 4th is when the bison was seen, I believe.
So it's been 9 days since we knew it was there. This side trail this episode comes out on July 9th. The compilation comes out on July 30th.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if we make air before that volcano blows up and kills us all.
Good times.
Yeah.
Bad times. I've had my share.
Hopefully everyone gets to hear this.
Good signs, bad signs. I've had my share.
It's a bad sign.
Yeah.
But I don't know, just a reminder that things are sacred and need to be treated that way. And we're not doing that. So, yeah, that's a portent of some proportion.
And we do want to apologize. We got some of the words wrong. We are bad at saying things, and we put a lot of work into preparing some of these things, learning how to speak other languages, sometimes not with the time frames involved we're capable of doing, so we do apologize that ahead of time. Again, if we get something wrong, let us know. We certainly don't want to misspeak or have anything that would be untoward towards any tribal members. So if we do something that you feel like we could do better next time,
it's hard to pronounce a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, but just in general, if we're getting something wrong,
oh sure,
let us know so we can do better next time.
Yeah, especially in the definition of things more than the pronunciation of them.
Correct.
But yeah, let us know. You can always let us know. monsterloretour@gmail.com.
Yeah. Or as we like to say,
give us your best. Give us your worst.
Monsterloretour at Jimmer.
Oh wow, that's some deep stuff, man. Deep stuff. New white buffaloes. All right.
Hot off the press.
No, thanks for bringing that to my attention, Moz. I'm actually going to look some more into that.
Yeah, I was very excited to see that today.
See.
The rest of the Drudge headlines, not so much.
Yeah. At least that has hope of being positive.
Yeah.
Even though maybe not.
I do take it as a momentous thing. And at this point, I really feel like we need these signs. We need these portents. We need these wake-up calls. And we need these reminders.
Yeah.
And this is one to, these stories do I certainly, just reading these stories, they're meaningful to me. I do not come from that group and that ethnic group. And at the same time, it does, I think Neihart's Black Elk Speaks was one of my favorite books, and I really enjoyed Lame Deer's Seeker of Vision. And the more I learn, the more it does tie in with these global themes that have meaning to me in a different way, perhaps.
Yeah, and we've both been in Arizona a long time, man.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we're, white guys transplanted from the Northeast, you spend enough time somewhere, you become of the place if you open yourself to it.
We talked about the land.
And we have both become very much of Arizona in our decades here.
Yeah.
I am so much more from here than I am from where I'm actually from at this point. Like, it feels weird to say I'm from anywhere else, even though technically I am.
I even have a sweater that just says Arizona. It's very generic. It just says Arizona.
Yeah. And honestly, that's when people ask me where I'm from now, I say Arizona.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be any more specific than that because I'm all over. Like, I've lived in Flagstaff. My address has been Flagstaff for almost the entirety of the last 15 years. I've been in Arizona almost 20. But with the way I bounce around, dude, like Flagstaff, Phoenix, Tucson.
Yeah.
I was in Winslow for a while, and I've traveled all up and down this state and all over, back and forth on all the roads.
Including the Forbidden Highway, right?
I've driven...
Old 666?
Yep. All over the res.
Yeah.
Like, I've been everywhere, man.
I've been everywhere, man.
I'm friggin' Johnny Cash. I've been everywhere in this state. And I feel like the whole place is my home. Like, there's nowhere in Arizona that I don't feel like I'm home.
Yeah.
Whether it be the desert or the mountains or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, call it what you will, but I have, been delving into the local knowledge and lore and culture since I've been here, and I do feel like it's become a part of me.
I think we talked about this, but there's a Chinese myth, and I think I quoted this, that basically says that whoever lives on this land within 100 years will be Chinese. And it's just that theory that there's something pervaded from the energy of the land itself that is actually, changing the energy of the beings that are there that live and reside on it.
When you're in a certain land, you will come to live like the people of that land.
Now, we have not, which is why things are a little bit messed up.
Well, because we
talk about the Wetico and what's happening on this country.
Our society fights its own nature.
Yeah.
Which leads to most of our problems.
It leads to us being a pile of bones at
the feet of the white buffalo
woman. Yep. Exactly. Good times. Did we do that joke already?
That just tied it together so nicely. We're going to get the hell out of here before we can mess it up. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Appreciate you, especially those listening in the member section on Patreon. Patreon.com/monsterloretour, where everything comes out early and you get the side trails right along with the episodes that they correlate with, so you don't have to wait for those compilations every 4 or 5 weeks or whatever it is. You can join for just $1 a month. Patreon.com/monsterloretour. Anything to add or subvert before we go, Moss?
Nope.
All right, so until next time, keep it weird. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Side Trail 48 of the Monster Lore Tour Paranormal Deep Dives from the Edge of Nowhere podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Carr, here with the tootin' my horn, Mr. Matt Ozero, the Moz. Hey, Moz. How we doing, Moz?
No complaints.
All right. You make me make that weird noise I do.
Is that good or bad?
Excuse me. I called you the tootin' my horn.
Yeah, I was trying to ignore that, and you said it again because I ignored it.
I saw you ignoring it, and I forced you to recognize. You to recognize.
Okay. I'm recognizing now.
Thank you. Anywho, this is your side trail on the Manananggal episode here, Maz. So where are we going from that crazy madness of the poo stew at the end of the last one?
We have some old business, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did say I would explain in the side trail why there were two. I said that I'm starting a new thing. I go down my list of adjacent monster critters, and that one ended in a wild ride to find that there are Manananggal elsewhere, which is pretty strange in and of itself.
Yeah, that was good work. Good work.
But I came up, this is what ended up happening. I had my list of different adjacent critters, and I said one would be a fake one, and you had to pick the aho guano. These were the two, and I'm going to go through them. We're going to explain what happened here, because this is important.
Oh, these actually mean something? I thought they were just jokes.
Well, you're going to see why they mean something.
Okay.
I said the Germans have a similar deal with the fliegende Scheißkopf, or flying shithead, which shows up at the end of the night at beer halls to slurp up spilled beer after festivals. You called aho guano.
Yep.
And then later in that same list, and this next creature fits the fourth classification called the stumbling Aswang, or Manananggal, which hangs out in bars and uses its long proboscis-like tongue to sip other people's drinks. And both of them are, you called aho guano a second time. And they are both very, very similar, right? They're both jokes that are kind of the creature kind of with the same flair, hanging out at the end of beer halls or hanging out in bars drinking beer.
One of them was the bar fly, and the other was the crazy festival dude.
Yeah. So what would you guess happened? Why there's two? What is your guess?
Oh, why there's two?
I said I was only going to add one aho guano into this list. There are two. And I said I would explain why in the side trail. That is why we are here today. Well, that's not really, but this is where we're starting.
The whole twins thing, the yin yang,
twin heroes,
the Remus and Romulus thing.
Nice, a Romulan ale and Saurian brandy. Why not?
The Romulan and Vulcan thing.
Yeah,
whichever one you want to choose,
yeah.
But it's the yin yang concept. It's the balancing parts. They're like the twins.
Very deep, very deep, very well done.
Just
very
knowing
well
you.
done. Very well done.
Okay.
Now here's what really happened. But that's good. I like that you did that. You're putting your thinking cap on. I finished this episode a while back, and I came up with this new idea. Hey, let's do an aho guano. Let's do one fake one. And I put this fake one in there, the fliegende Scheißkopf, and I put it away. And then I come back to do it again. I'm like, come back to the adjacent critters. I'm like, hey, I do this new thing with these lists. I add a fake one. So I add the stumbling Aswang, or Manananggal. Same idea, same joke, different creature. Put them both in there and didn't realize there were two till we just about went live.
Wow. Okay.
So that's what happened. But I like your answer. Your answer is pretty cool. But we're going to keep doing that. When I do this list of features, there's going to be one fake one. Just one that you have to figure out.
Okay.
But I like the yin and yang hero twins thing. I was, grasping at stuff. But we're going to have fun with etymology before we do. The side trail today is really going to be about Maximus Ramos's work and why he kind of tried to toe that line between the Volksgedanken and the Elementgedanken of the area, local flair of the mythos, and why he had to attack the myth at the same time, as far as not don't bring it into the real world, but at the same time honor the Volksgedanken, how important it is to the Philippine history and the people there. So he kind of walked that tightrope for the last third of his book, and I thought he did a really nice job. So I thought we should discuss it here. Mm-hmm. Before we get to that, I want to do a little fun with etymology. We started this long journey of the shamanic ladder and that kind of etymology surrounding that. The Tlingit, Alaska, we found in the Otter Men Empire episode. The Kewa, the Tlingit sky realm for heroes. And the word Kewa itself means way up. Reminder, this is a land of the Otter people from southeastern Alaska. So we have an otter component to it. We have a shamanic ladder component to it. We have a way up component to it. Okay. Then we have the Kawaso, the Japanese Ainu otter shapeshifter, means that which reaches up. So we have that piece of it. We've discussed this one before, but in South America, when studying the Kainama were-jaguars, I found the Kalawali, Kalawali, which are essentially shamanic battles that occur while ascending these same types of shamanic ladders. Now that we're in the Philippines, I found Kalawahatian, Kaluwalhatian, the ancient Tagalog sky world. The variations for this in this region are Kalawahatian or Kamarawayan. It's a bit of a stretch maybe, but like everything else, I didn't come across otters or anything with this piece of it, but it's odd the etymology of these sky worlds kind of have a similar thing. I have no idea if it's meaningful. I'm not an etymologist. So I thought it was bizarre, and I don't know, again, if it has any meaning. It's just as I come across these things, I typed them down for some reason.
I definitely had no idea the otter was such a widespread totemic animal in the world.
Yeah, the Chobarhu in Scotland was probably my favorite from that one as well.
Nice.
And I still want, Simon Pegg to do a movie about the Chobarhu. I think there's something in there, and we've got to send him a little hint.
I just watched a really good new Simon Pegg movie.
Nice.
Something about an irrational fear of everything or something. I forget exactly what it's called, but it was really good.
There you go. Simon Pegg's got it going on. But near the onset of this project, I think I told you this recently, I read Archaic Techniques of Ecstasy, Mircea Eliade, and I thumbed through Christina Pratt's 2-volume Encyclopedia of Shamanism. If you're wondering why I'm kind of got shaman on the brain for some of this stuff, I read like 1,000 pages before we got going, but I was so entrenched that that's why I'm becoming the monster shaman guy, because I found these themes, and I found the themes relate to the monster as well. So I didn't expect that. I did, but I didn't. Like, I knew it was a component to it, an element of it. I had no idea it was going to be kind of at the heart of this. Yeah. Because some people are probably wondering, what are these guys doing? Well, we are flying by the seat of our pants in a way. We've done a lot of reading, and now we're just doing a lot of discussing.
Well, it all started with, you did do all that reading beforehand.
Yeah.
I can attest to that.
Or rereading for some of it.
Yeah, like kind of putting your library of this stuff back in your brain to when we really wanted to start this project. But since then, I think a lot of it comes from the fact that your first deep dive was on skin.
Walkers, yeah.
And you had all that other stuff in your brain freshly when you did that.
Yeah.
And you went, man, this sounds like all that stuff I was reading about in all those books. And it led to almost everything else you've done since then on the podcast.
If we go long enough, I'd like to re-look at that, because again, I wasn't thinking that way when I first did that episode, and I was treating it like a podcast. This has become something very different now a year later.
I'll make a pact with you right now for everyone to hear. Season 3, if you want to redo the Skin
Walker
saga from episodes 3 and 4, especially since episode 3 we couldn't get the audio right. Cursed episode.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody. We could totally do that. I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm down for doing that again.
Before I do that, I wanted to get a hold of, I think it's Cucklehorn's Navajo sorcery book, and it's a long one, but I wanted to read that before I did that episode, and it's expensive and didn't get a hold of it.
Right.
That'll be my goal, get a hold of that before we start, and so I have something more to talk about. Now, again, we got to be careful with how we handle this whole genre, and what we're saying and what we're doing can be misused. So I think we have to be careful, and of course there's always the cultural appropriation piece, and anything we're doing wrong that way, let us know. Sure. If we bungle anything, we're just trying to do our best here.
I drive Uber in Flagstaff. We're a border town with Navajo Nation, and so I drive a lot of natives around, and I have placards on the back of the seat, so when people get in, they see Monster Lore Tour. And the ones that are into it, the ones that actually talk to me about it, a lot of them, their first question is, you talk about skin
walkers?
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm like, oh yeah, buddy, we started with that. And they're like, oh cool, I want to listen to that. So I don't think obviously we're staying respectful. We have our story straight.
Well, I don't know if it's obvious. I think it's easy to make mistakes when you're dancing this dance we're doing.
And I'm sure we have, but I'm also sure that our level of respect shines through.
Yeah, we would hope, yep.
And I have personal conversations with Navajo people all the time.
Yeah.
About this stuff, and I think they're going to be just fine with what we're doing.
Okay.
The problem is they'll tell me stuff, but they won't tell it into a microphone.
Yeah.
I can't get them to actually come on the podcast. Yeah. Like, I've had people tell me the craziest stuff, dude.
Yeah.
Like, craziest stuff. I don't know, but like the fact that they don't come on, I don't know how much I should talk about it on here either, because if they hear me making it public, then they might not talk to me no more.
Well, I hate to talk about our
You know what
our
I mean?
last episode, but maybe that would be a fitting last episode because it was my first
there you go.
episode. If we ever decide, I can work towards that, and whenever we decide we're going to be wrapping this up, if it ever,
Why would we do that?
I don't ever want to think about that, but I think
No,
that would be
I'm
good.
just thinking
It'd be
by-
very Ouroboros-y, though. We
Yeah.
started with that, we end with that.
Oh, sure. But
10 years from now, how about that?
yeah, there you go. Well, I mean, if you don't want to wait that long, if you want to rebuild that saga after going through all these other things that you now know in the same genre and like bring it back and do it again, I got no problems with revisiting that.
Yeah,
I think it would be worth it. I think it would be very worthwhile. And then people don't have to go back to the beginning to get that stuff either. You know what I mean?
I think it's important to say that we started this as a regular podcast and we were just going to do things like other folks did. It very quickly became a much bigger, a much broader, a much more well-researched, a much different project than I think both of us ever imagined. So
yeah,
but that's more annual update stuff. We're coming up to that.
lifelong slackers. We start a paranormal podcast. We turn into workaholics.
Yeah, it's got not what we expected in some way. But back to Dr. Maximos Ramos. He's the subject today of our side trail. Remember we talked about the psychologist up on the res who thought the existence of the skin
Walkers
was irrelevant. The consequences are very, very real.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Ramos has a similar tale to tell. We talk about, in the Philippines. He talks about, people leaving the windows closed when it would be healthier to leave them open at night. Talks about pregnant women, particularly in remoter regions, stress the hell out because of the Aswang, which if you know anything about gestation and anxiety, not a great idea. Ramos reviews a number of problems exacerbated by the Aswang belief, from digging septic systems as not to offend the guardian dwarf spirits of the region, to being so afraid of the water the inhabitants of the whole island chain refused to learn to swim. Back to what you were saying, fires under the house to keep vigil. Philippines have their herbalists and their different shaman classes, but Ramos tells some horror stories about people sticking with the old ways and not utilizing Western medicine when it's obvious we can fix this. They don't go to the doctor. A lot of times there's a good reason to go to a medicine man, especially with today's healthcare system. But if we know what it is, and it's Western medicine, there's a medicine for that, some of these folks are choosing not to, and they're dying. And he has some of those accounts as well.
I have a really deep question for you at some point. You want to do it now or later?
Let's do it.
Do you think it's possible for two cultures to meet in the middle and actually find like a harmonious middle ground where both of them can exist together like that?
I mean, not here, but I think other countries have a real shot at something like that with the natural medicine and herbalist and folks, homeopathic stuff and all the acupuncture ends of it.
I'm saying
plus the Western medicine. So you have in the same facility, you have someone who's going to get you to the right door,
but at the same time still maintain belief in things like the Manananggal. Have Western medicine where it's needed most, the best applications of it, but still be able to hold on to that culture of your herbalism and your medicine people and your monsters.
Well, I think that I don't want to put words into Ramos's mouth, but he wanted to draw the line in the sand to put that into the category of myth and not be scared to death of a monster in the woods.
So to bring them out of the woods, you have to kill the culture.
Well, he's not saying that. He's saying the myths are very important, and he explains in the last third of his book how we can keep those important images alive in our culture, from art to education to ongoing mythos that becomes part of their festivals and maintains in their livelihood, but not thinking something is physically going to kill you tonight while you sleep or take the body.
That's my point right there, is the belief. You're going to lose the belief in the culture. The imagery and the lore and the mythos and all that, sure. You can write it all down. You can create your art in whatever way you want to represent it. But the ideal for these people would be to maintain their belief.
In the shamanic
but be able to
component.
access the parts of the outside world from that would benefit them the most.
Yeah, it's like what we talked about with the watering hole. When you have a good kind of a healthy view of what's in the watering hole. It's the snake with a diamond in its head, and it's actually really just stay away from it, honor it, respect it, and it can help you potentially. Or if you really disrespect it, something awful could happen. But, it's just the thing in the water hole you need to respect. It became, after the colonizers, just this awful thing in the watering hole. And I don't know if they're ever going to get that piece back, and a healthy view of ancestor spirits and all this stuff. I don't know if you can bring it's what you're saying, I think.
It just came back in my mind is the Shape-Shifting Crocs episode when the guy kills the ancestral crocodile.
Right.
That's it right there in a nutshell.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It's tough because you don't, and that's the problem with so-called Western culture going into other parts of the world and seeing these cultures and being like, well, you could be a lot healthier this and your diet and your medicine and blah, blah, blah. We could really help you. But when we start helping them, all we're doing is killing their culture that they've been living with for time out of mind.
Yeah.
And are we really doing them any favors when we do that?
Right. And there's a shamanistic component that seems to be really something to it, and something that's really important and something really worth saving. And I think that's what we're getting at. And the answer to that is I don't know.
Yeah.
I
would like to think that humans are capable of having the technology that you have in like the developed world with medicine and machines and everything else. Electricity. If we really started making nothing but actual clean, renewable electricity, I mean that's some kind of balance point, right?
Yeah.
Like be harmonious but still be able to have your tech. I mean, I'd like to think there's some kind of middle ground where humans can get to eventually, where we can actually live here and be harmonious but still have our toys. You know what I mean?
Well, the westernization of it seems to be so complete to me that it seems like we've done this, and I don't know.
Oh, like I'm just asking philosophically if it's possible.
Yeah.
In order to get there would have to be a massive reckoning first, which I'm not sure anybody really wants to go through. Or I guess, I mean, if we really started trying to get there together, we could slide right into it. It's all a matter of who's on board and what we've got to do to get there. And those are things that I'm just a wacky philosopher thinking about things. I don't claim to have answers, but I like to ask the questions, maybe get people thinking about it.
Well, the same study, the story of Stephen, who has a snake that shows up, and the dad's like, oh yeah, that's just the family totem, and he likes you because this is your actual Kabotica. This you share part of it. This is your individual totem now. He likes you. He's living in your room.
Right.
He's Christianized. He thinks this is the work of Satan, and he turns away from his totem animal. And that's a prime example of now we're going to ask them to go back and rekindle that snake connection. I don't know. I think once things are broken, I mean, it's going to take a big reset, and I think the big reset's probably coming.
Sea changes are hard, man. No matter which way it goes, whether it's peaceful or violent or technological or a regression of technology or whatever it may be, it's always hard. It's going to be difficult because you can't just change the world and not notice. Change is hard when you're doing real change. But if that change is towards the right end for the right reasons, most of the time it's worth the effort, and then you appreciate it so much more when you get there.
Yeah. And remember from this episode, many areas of the Philippines, I almost forgot this part, have the same practice of abandoning the house where someone died. This is similar to the Navajo.
Yeah.
Just doesn't do much for like setting up permanent structures and getting these communities going. Again, in a Western direction.
It speaks to a nomadic peoples, is what that speaks to. Like the original culture that would come up with that is like they're not used to staying in the same place very much anyway.
Yeah. But for me, I keep coming back to that crocodile shapeshifter one that was really kind of changed the way I feel that, anthropologists feel about all this. People take one more step into that ontological penumbra, do have a life-changing experience, whether participating in the shamanic ritual or partaking in the hallucinogens. Anthropologists who take that next step often have very different tales to tell, and their lives are forever changed. Here's Samantha Hearn, by the way. We will be hearing more from her in season 2 because I just got a groovy book from her. But how can the evidence before us show whether local people are making an ontological distinction between natural and supernatural, or whether they believe that something exists or not, or whether this amounts to belief at all? How does fact connect with interpretation, and where do the domains of science and ethnoscience begin and end? And that's from Samantha Hearn's Anthropology and Cryptozoology.
You know, that felt like a scientist asking the same question I did, except I did it philosophically, and they did it scientifically.
Yeah. And I think a lot of them are asking it. A lot of them are taking up the actual injunction and learning. You know, Jeremy Narby did it with ayahuasca, and Graham Hancock did it with ayahuasca, and a lot of other people didn't even take the drug, just participated in the shamanic route, took that one extra step, living with them for, I got it wrong, I think. Merz actually lived with them for, it was like a 13 or 15-year dealio.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of don't know if I made that clear, but we will be going back to Sharon Merz because we found some more stuff on her about the Siawasa Bushmen, and it was a little bit more what I was thinking that they were. And again, how do I guess as a guy who, I didn't spend 13 years, but this is what it sounds like you're talking about with these little hairy guys. Are they creature teachers? Turns out, yeah. So we're going to find out why in the annual update, and we're going to discuss that a little bit more maybe next season.
Turns out, yeah. You get to say that a lot.
Well, I mean, it does seem, again, with the whistling, with these things that come out, these themes, the whirlwind, these things now pop off the page for you when you read them. And Christina Pratt's was really good that way because she broke down each tribe by tribe, and you see the transgender one for all of them, and you see what the creature, what the shaman does, and you're just reading these pieces, and you're just seeing theme after theme. And again, don't want to step on the Volcadunk, and everybody's original and local thing is different, and there's a lot of them that are not the same. But there's so many commonalities that you can't ignore that either. And if that annoys you that we're shifting them into these buckets, this is not the podcast for you, because we are trying to look for the bigger picture and see what these things might mean from a psychological and a real projection monstery kind of thing that's happening out there. There are were creatures out there that people are experiencing, and there's way more to the story than meets the eye. And I think we're going to get to the heart of that by season 2 is my guess. So
sweet.
Yeah. We'll just solve it. We plan to solve it. We said pretty early on, we're just going to solve this shit.
We're going to come up with the paranormal theory of everything.
Yes.
Because we're extreme paranerdalists.
Yes.
We are going to commit rampant aswangery.
Yeah. Which is not legal in certain states. So be aware of your local laws.
Yeah. But for now, we have some hardcore Flagstaffing to go do, so we're going to get out of here.
Yipper.
Anything else to add or subvert before we go, Moss?
Nope.
Cool. Well, everybody check out our Patreon, where you can listen to these side trails along with the episode right when they release. Comes out together. They come out early. We drop them in chunks, so we'll almost catch up, and then all of a sudden we're 2 months ahead or whatever sometimes. But you will always be ahead of the public crowd if you join the Patreon at patreon.com/monsterlore tour. It's only $1 a month to support the podcast. We really appreciate it. If you haven't hit the happy fun buttons yet, please do that. Yes, Moz.
But put a coaster on your beer tonight, because I'm going with my cylindrical tubular tongue for your, the Manananggal will be.
I knew that was you.
Yeah.
I knew it.
You guessed it. Well, you'll find out tonight if you don't put that coaster on that beer.
That's good advice to everybody out there, actually. You don't want those little tongues getting in your beer when you're at the pub. On that note, thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next time. Till then, keep on squatching. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Side Trail 49 for the Monster Lore Tour Paranormal Deep Dives from the Edge of Nowhere podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Carr, here along with my co-host and the gravy on my biscuits, Mr. Matt Ozero, a.k.a. The Moz.
That's like the most suggestive one yet. How about
I think the elf on my shelf was pretty bad.
The wavy to my gravy. Let's just do that. It
seems safer. The wavy to my gravy, baby.
Yeah, thank you.
The Moz. Yep. How we doing, Moz?
Well, did you go out and take that other part out yet?
I'm just going to leave it where it's at, man. This is a side trail. It should be hot and sloppy like gravy and whatever you said.
Lumps of grizzly fat.
Yeah. Yeah. Granny's greasy gravy biscuits, you know?
Yeah, Granny's closet back in the day.
You know, those were pretty greasy.
Yep.
But we are back to talk more about the Mojave incident, some other elements and subsequent theories and whatnot. One thing I want to look at further is Tom's theory that these visitors have been coming to the Mojave for time out of mind, for many generations of man, maybe. Is Tom biased in this because of his multiple experiences separated by decades? Maybe. But there is some much stronger evidence than that to make one think these visitors have been regulars in the Mojave for quite some time. There is a pair of famous geoglyphs in the Mojave Desert, known as the Mojave Twins, or the Fort Mojave Twins. You can Google the images typing in either one of those. Represented in these giant glyphs in the sand are two beings. One seems necklace with oddly bowed legs. This form, Tom and Elise Gifford both say, is very reminiscent of the form of the ephemeral gremlins that we now call glimmerwudgies. The crazy monkey-like guys running around all over the place.
No neck, bow-legged little gremlins.
All right. The other, with the strange brain-shaped head, is thought to be representative of the guard-type glimmermanish beings. Then there is the intaglio man at the Blythe geoglyphs in Arizona, on the other side of the Mojave, from the Mojave Twins geoglyph. Here we find a depiction of almost an exact description from Tom and Elise that they gave for the 9 telepathic creatures with the undersized torsos and extra long limbs. These geoglyphs are said to have been created between 600 to 1,000 years ago, and they could be even older than that. So if these things were carved in the sands of the Mojave so many hundreds of years ago, how many times have these visitors been there? You know, how many people have seen them? How many have been taken?
Yeah.
Could it be that most people never remember the experience, like Tom's childhood friend, Keith, who blocked out the whole thing?
Yeah.
And are most not allowed to remember, except for some bits getting through. Even under hypnosis, Elise was refusing to say things like, she wasn't saying she didn't know. She's saying, I can't say. I'm not allowed to say. So even then, like, under that process, it's, I can't talk about it. So what do you think of that, Moz? I know you're a non-believer in this. I'm asking you to put
No, I'm not. This specific story, the whole genre, I'm not sweeping under. I'm not, I watched all the Ancient Alien seasons, so I'm definitely a fan, and to some degree, am definitely intrigued by some of their findings, especially how things relate to the sky and the earth. I mean, some of the things, some of those episodes were kind of mind-blowing in their own way.
Were you aware of these geoglyphs in the Mojave before?
Well, they may show up in other, I mean, like the bow-legged one sounds familiar. It's the one that I might have seen before. But, Eric Van Daniken and Giorgio Tsoukalos go through a lot of these and explain what they might be and what they look like for things in the area. And, connect it back to the Kachinas on the mountain, and they connect to all the mythologies. There's the ant people at the Hopi. They make all these connections, and they get folks on from the tribes to discuss their beliefs, which tie into a lot of these ancient alien theories. So it's definitely, I'm a fan. I'm intrigued, and I'm always interested to find those connections. I was reading Eric Van Daniken, holy crap, like in the 80s. Show you how old I am. So I still have, I'm not sure if I still have it.
So I find it interesting that the 3 big geoglyphs that you hear about in the Mojave represent the 3 different breeds in this story that we just did.
Yeah.
But
Potentially.
Just riffing on some theory in the side trail here. I also want to get back into the telepathic side of the visitors' communications. They literally got inside Tom and Elise's heads. They're forced to recall memories of all kinds, from the happiest to the most distressing and disturbing, from all times of their lives and in all different social circumstances. But it may be that the perception of the thing is far different than the intention of the thing. It comes back around to the laboratory theory that these visitors approach us like we approach a test animal in a lab. The subjects may suffer, but it is all for the greater good kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, we torture those animals so we can learn stuff. Not saying I agree with animal testing at all. Just saying it is a reality in the world, and maybe there are species out there doing it to us just like we do to so many others.
And that, again, that's the theme from the 60s of what the main premise of it is. And that's also the premise of the X-Files, that they're working on our DNA and expanding our making us, bringing us so we evolve quicker so we don't destroy ourselves is one of the theories as well.
Oh, interesting.
Or they're just harvesting us for what their needs, and they're building a slave race. There's a lot of different theories about this.
Yeah. Well, that's what it was to begin with. We were built as a slave race, and then they just left us here.
Yes, that's definitely one of the ancient alien theories.
Yep. But that isn't the only implication of the telepathic nature of these beings either. Telepathy also leads me back to my favorite genre of theory, interdimensionality.
There you go.
This encounter starts making more sense to me if you allow for a higher dimensional nature of the visitors. First, let's look at their tech. The mothership capped the valley and started collecting samples of seemingly everything there was to sample along the desert floor, while the visitors did their testing on the Giffords. When the smaller ships descended from the sky, there was no moon or stars left shining. The sky was a complete void, but it had been a clear desert night before the ships arrived. Then when
stargazing, they were pointing out constellations.
Right, exactly. They were sitting there playing the star game because he knew the constellations, and she was like, "What's that there?"
No, they were playing Stratego, and then Samantha Mulder was abducted. Oh wait, that's Aristotle. Sorry.
But then, when the true abduction part of the encounter began, it seemed that the entire landscape was lifted into the ship, along with the Giffords' truck. The entire valley seemed to travel upward with them into the ship. What I propose is that the Giffords' perceptions were false and that they were watching a 4-dimensional process from a 3-dimensional framework.
They were being folded into the Tesseract, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Not just basically, but exactly. I theorize that the mothership was a Tesseractian craft, a 4-dimensional hypercube traveling in 3-dimensional space. It appears as a finite 3-dimensional object to outside observers, but it's actually a folded-up piece of 4-dimensional space, which means it can hold how much 3-dimensional material, Moz?
All of it.
All of it.
Yeah.
An infinite amount. That is exactly right. This would allow for it to cover all that desert so quickly, and for the entire valley to be seemingly lifted at once into the craft that shouldn't have been big enough to hold it.
So we can have a greenhouse?
If we can figure out how to make a tesseract.
Wow. Okay. I'm excited now.
I have a tattoo, but it's just a 2-dimensional rendering.
Yeah. That's almost kind of a slap in the face.
Yeah, it's like 2 steps everywhere.
Down. Yeah.
2 steps down.
Well, if it gets so bad, if you got it done badly, it could have created a tesseract.
It's kind of the optical illusion that makes it look 3-dimensional. So it's a 2-dimensional representation in 3 dimensions of a 4-dimensional object. I don't know how
I'm going
to
tell you how to figure this out. You defocalize like you do when you look at the thing for the sailboat, just the little dots on the page.
Yeah.
When it forms a tesseract, you get sucked into it because it's through defocalization. So I think that's the key.
Was always good at those things.
Yeah. So posters and defocalization and hallucinogens.
It helps to be a little out of focus all the time.
Yeah. that's
Anywho,
it's part of the shamanic dealio.
If this Tesseractian theory is correct, it would also cover another big question mark here. How did no one else see any of it? I know they were way out in the desert, but they weren't all that far from the packed out campground, and they would have been far from the only people bivouacking in the Mojave during that hunting season weekend. So how were they the only ones to see such a huge invading fleet? Well, if they were being folded into 4-dimensional space, as the invasion began, they would have been on a totally different plane of existence than everyone else out in the desert that night. The whole thing would just blink out of everyone else's reality, and they would never get a chance to notice. Huh?
All right.
While the Giffords were in the fold, the visitors could take their time, impose their will, collect their data, and then put everything back just the way they'd found it. Not only where they'd found it, but when they'd found it as well, such as the power of the hyperdimensional.
There you go.
Space-time, And then be once again on their merry way, leaving the Giffords to wonder what the hell just happened and what it was all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, if this is a real story, it's going to have a crazier, or it's going to have a hallucinatory, or it's going to have...
This became my favorite theory. In the episode, I talk about my favorite theory there, but once I wrote this, I'm like, oh, this makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
Because if right away the ship shows up and it's like, oh, there's our valley, we want to mine that one. Mm-hmm. And they literally just fold the whole thing into the Tesseract real quick so they can do their work without anyone knowing. But then they go, oh shit, there's a couple people here.
We scooped up another one.
And somebody's like, all right, keep an eye on them. And then one of the scientists is like, can we go poke them a little bit and see what they're all about? We've been trying to learn about these guys.
Yeah, the science department
like,
badly
okay,
funded.
send a couple guys down. You know what I mean? Like the two guards were the scientists. The glimmer wedgies were probably the actual guards, What I mean? Like that's the minor guys going, all right, go keep an eye on those two. Don't let them go nowhere.
Yeah.
But so totally different theory at work in that one. But there is also something that Tom says toward the end of the book when asked if anything positive came out of their experience. He says, quote, I think we came away with another sense, as if we used a part of our brain that we've never tapped before. And sometimes in the dark, it's like we're seeing another reality, something behind this reality. People or spirits behind what is our world, but we don't know how to get back to using it again. So Tom believed that if they could remember how to harness that sense, that he and Elise could again communicate with the visitors and maybe even each other telepathically. It has been theorized that the human mind holds the capacity to perceive more than 3 dimensions that we currently experience, but the equipment just hasn't evolved far enough yet.
So once it does, boom, we're seeing.
Once it does,
we're experiencing.
Yeah, and could it be that these encounters are a genetic enhancement of that effect?
There you go.
Could the Giffords have the gene that could grow to allow humans to become 4-dimensional beings? And could this whole apparent star child program of the visitor affecting the pregnancies of their test subjects be a speeding up of our evolution to higher dimensional ends? You were speaking about this theory not too long ago there, Moss.
Yep. Yeah, kind of ties in a little bit.
Yeah. And that brings me to another point raised by something Elise said while under hypnosis. There was a time during the session that Elise seemed to be channeling the visitors more than herself. It was during this time that Dr. Neihardt asked Elise, do you have a sense as to who they are and where they've come from? Elise replies, there are 5 galaxies. Theirs is the next closest. In order for all 5 galaxies to work together one day, they have to start, and they're starting with us, so we'll be united galaxies. What else do you know? Dr. Neihardt asked. She replies, I know where the universe ends. Our universe ends where theirs begins. Our universe ends when all its matter stops mattering to us and starts mattering to them.
Whoa. That's mind-blowing a little bit.
This was a big mind-blown moment for me when I read it.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my paranerdalist geek-out moment of the week. Have you ever heard of the multi-bubble universe theory, Moss?
Yeah, I think it was the Russian guy who came up with the budding of the universe.
Yeah. It's a version of the multiverse theory that has become so popular in today's mainstream. Looking at you, Marvel. Let's go to an article from MirageNews.com to fill us in on the concept properly, though. Headline, Bubble Universes and Multiverse Theory, a new look at reality. Understanding the universe and its origins has been a central question of human inquiry since the dawn of civilization. As our understanding of physics has evolved, so too has our perspective on the universe. The concept of a single, all-encompassing universe has given way to theories proposing multiple or even an infinite number of universes, a concept known as the multiverse. At the heart of this theory is the idea of bubble universes. Each bubble represents a separate universe, distinct but possibly similar to our own. The concept of bubble universes arises from the theory of eternal inflation, a variant of the cosmological inflation theory. Inflation theory, proposed by physicist Alan Guth in the 1980s, suggests that there was a period of rapid expansion in the early universe. Eternal inflation takes this concept further by proposing that some regions of space-time continue to inflate, leading to an endless creation of new bubble universes. Each bubble universe forms when a region of space stops inflating. This cessation of inflation is triggered by a process called quantum tunneling, which results in a local drop in energy. The energy drop leads to a hot and dense state, the same conditions from which our own universe evolved following the Big Bang. Hence, each bubble universe may undergo its own Big Bang and subsequent evolution, possibly leading to the formation of galaxies, stars, and planets.
Or it just buds off, and that's, I think, more of the Russian.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to figure out who that guy was.
It's an M theory, like membrane theory kind of thing. It's bubbles on the membrane.
Yeah, it's inflating, and they just kind of bud off.
Yep. One popping out of the other kind of thing, yeah. But the space itself, like, expands and creates the vacuum, which then pulls in that stuff too sometimes. Like, it's... depends on which theory you're talking about specifically, but they're all very similar in that way. Anywho, back to this. The implications of the multiverse theory are profound. If there are indeed an infinite number of universes, then it's plausible that every possible event will occur in at least one of them. This includes variations of our own universe, where the laws of physics might be slightly different, or even universes where the history of life took a different path. On a cosmological scale, the multiverse theory may help explain the so-called fine-tuning problem. Our universe appears to be finely tuned for the existence of life as we know it. If any of the fundamental physical constants were slightly different, life might not exist. They shouldn't even say might there. It would not exist. Some physicists argue that in an infinite multiverse, it's not surprising that we find ourselves in one of the rare universes suitable for life. Despite its compelling implications, the multiverse theory is not without its critics. One major criticism is that it's currently untestable and unobservable. Because light hasn't had time to travel from these other universes to ours, we can't observe them directly. For many scientists, this lack of empirical evidence makes the multiverse theory more of a philosophical notion than a scientific one.
Except string theory does some of the math for this.
Yeah, a lot of physicists will tell you that's more philosophical than scientific too, though.
No, I'm not. I know, that's what we talked about with Dr. Arnett. I'm not in disagreement.
Right. Another criticism revolves around the idea of Occam's razor, which suggests that the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. Critics argue that introducing an infinite number of universes to explain our own seems to violate this principle. However, proponents of the multiverse theory argue that it's a natural consequence of our best understanding of physics, even if it's not the simplest explanation. The theory of bubble universes and the wider concept of the multiverse represent the cutting edge of cosmological thought. While the theory may seem strange or even unpalatable to some, it is grounded in solid scientific principles and offers potential explanations for some of the biggest questions about our universe. Whether the multiverse theory will ever be empirically confirmed remains to be seen. However, the fact that our universe may be just one of an infinite number of bubbles on an endless cosmic sea represents a thrilling new perspective on reality. So some of the biggest questions they are talking about there is the problem of dark matter and dark energy. These are concepts created to fill a void in the universe. Without them, the structure of the universe and its gravity wouldn't make sense. However, if you apply this bubble multiverse theory, the presence of another universe laid on top of our own, with which we trade particles and energy, could actually account for that void and explain the nature of this so-called dark matter or dark energy. Now let's go back for a moment to what Elise said.
How does that, for the dark matter? I mean, they kind of know where where it's accumulating, even if they don't know exactly what it is.
If it's a multi-dimensional thing, it's a four.
Oh, it's because they're sharing space.
We're literally in the same space.
Sharing the same space from two different dimensions. One is dark, one's like, okay,
right.
I got it.
I
wasn't following that.
Yeah, like what we think is void is them, and what they think is void is us. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now let's go back for a moment to what Elise said. Our universe ends where theirs begins. Our universe ends when all its matter stops mattering to us and starts mattering to them. Does that sound like maybe visitors from the neighboring bubble to you, Moz?
Yeah, with their own agenda.
Yeah. And they say there are 5 galaxies. That's a small number when you're talking of a multiverse. But consider the implications of the statement that the small differences in physical and cosmological laws that could develop in any given universe may not allow for life to exist. Could it be that in all of the multiverse, these dimensional, or I guess bubble travelers, have only found 5 galaxies in which sentient life has been able to evolve?
So they're terraforming their own universe. They're picking and choosing and kind of collecting them in a little bucket.
Ooh. I hadn't gone that deep with it. That's interesting. But they're starting with us. They're making contact. They're out scouting. You know what I mean? They're looking, and they found 5, and they're starting contact with some of them, apparently. That's what I'm getting at there. But how would they go about finding those life forms in the immensity of the empty vastness of each of these universes, to discover these galaxies?
The Tesseract.
If they were hyperdimensional beings, they could peer through our entire space-time at once.
Right.
That's the thing. So maybe that's it right there. If they're 4-dimensional looking at the 3,
right,
they can kind of see everything at once.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I think that could be, that's definitely getting into crazy theory, but at the same time makes somewhat sense scientifically. Right?
Yeah. There's a little bit of science there that you can start looking at and see where
a little
it leads.
Dark matter you can get between your teeth there,
Yeah.
Always get stuck there. You can never find it.
I mean, it's one of the biggest questions in science.
Yeah.
What is that?
What is dark matter?
We gave it a name, but that doesn't mean we know what it is.
Yeah. It's just to make the math right, as usual.
Exactly. It's a tool of mathematics. Yeah. Crazy. How little we know. But before we go, I'd like to look at some possible kind of local connections that might be made to the Mojave incident also. Some encounter type stories that might relate. When reading about the mothership in Ron Felber's book, I was reminded of the Phoenix Lights incident that happened here in Arizona, home of the Intaglio Man geoglyph. I know you're familiar with this, Moz, but I'm going to run through a bit of a timeline for the Phoenix Lights encounter. On March 13th, 1997 at 7:55 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, as always, we do not change our clocks in Arizona. A witness in Henderson, Nevada reported seeing a large V-shaped object traveling southeast. At 8:15 p.m., an unidentified former police officer in Paulden, Arizona reported seeing a cluster of reddish-orange lights disappear over the southern horizon. Shortly afterwards, there were reports of lights seen over the Prescott Valley, Arizona. Tim Lay and his wife Bobby, his son Hal, and his grandson Damian Turnage first saw the lights when they were about 65 miles away from them. At first, the lights appeared to them as 5 separate and distinct lights in an arc shape, as if they were on top of a balloon. But they soon realized that the lights appeared to be moving towards them. Over the next 10 minutes or so, the lights appeared to come closer. The distance between the lights increased, and they took on the shape of an upside-down V. Eventually, when the lights appeared to be a couple of miles away, the family said they could make out a shape that looked like a 60-degree carpenter's square with the 5 lights set into it, with 1 at the front and 2 on each side. Soon the object with the embedded lights appeared to be moving toward them, about 100 to 150 feet above them. That's 30 to 45 meters. Traveling so slowly that it gave the appearance of a silent hovering object, which seemed to pass over their heads and went through a V opening in the peaks of the mountain range towards Piestewa Peak Mountain and toward the direction of Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport.
How convenient. A V-shaped craft and a V-shaped mountain range.
Actor Kurt Russell, an amateur pilot, then reported seeing the lights to air traffic control. And this made him a big believer. And his wife Goldie Hawn says she has talked to the aliens.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that.
I would love to get that interview, Moz. That would be fantastic.
I saw him say that on an interview once. Where someone asked him about it.
Yeah. But between 8:30 and 8:45 p.m., witnesses in Glendale, a suburb northwest of Phoenix, saw the light formation pass overhead at an altitude high enough to become obscured by the thin clouds. Amateur astronomer Mitch Stanley in Scottsdale, Arizona, also observed the high-altitude lights flying in formation through a telescope. According to Stanley, they were quite clearly individual airplanes. According to Stanley.
What?
Yeah.
Most people didn't come to that conclusion.
Yeah, that's a weird one there, but we can talk about it if you want after. Let me finish this real quick. Approximately 10 p.m. that same evening, a large number of people in the Phoenix area reported seeing a row of brilliant lights hovering in the sky or slowly falling. A number of photographs and videos were taken, prompting author Robert Schaefer to describe it as perhaps the most widely witnessed UFO event in history. So this, to me, in some ways anyway, resembles the Mojave incident. Do you want to talk about that guy first?
Well, just most of the folks who saw that were convinced it was one craft because it moved in such unison that it looked like a triangle,
and well into it, this guy looks at a formation of lights over Glendale and sees it as individual airplanes. But don't you think Luke Air Force Base would have scrambled some jets at that point?
Yeah,
if you're looking over towards Luke Air Force Base and you see some airplanes, like that might have been more of a response than the actual thing.
It is odd because Luke is right there. I mean, the F-35s or whatever they had at that time would be up in the air and would be there immediately.
Right. I think that guy was looking at the wrong formation of lights and actually saw our planes instead of what everybody else was looking at. Because this was, it was thousands of people saw this thing. You know, like all up and down the state of Arizona that night, people were reporting this stuff. Like this is just to show kind of the progression geographically, timeline-wise. Like it was very slowly crossing the state. And along the way, like thousands of people witnessed this.
Oh, yeah. Prescott to Phoenix with stops in Wickenburg and Skull Valley.
But in some ways, it kind of resembles the Mojave incident to me. It seems there was the central mothership surrounded by countless smaller craft that could light up and disappear at will. We're seen flying or hovering in a number of different numbers and formations and stuff. Of course, the whole military angle is always relevant here, especially with all the relevant military installations you'd find along the route of these mystery lights. But one is almost forced to wonder when you look deeper into it. The debunking says flares, but none of these lights moved or shone like flares do. They didn't light up the ground below them or the sky around them, and they hovered and changed speed. Definitely not buying the flare story.
No, I know people, friends of friends who've seen this thing. A lot of people in the valley remember this day.
There was also the numerous sightings by unrelated parties. This is my next note, of seeing some sort of large central ship. It does, like beyond that Carpenter Square thing we were talking about. It doesn't seem as large as the one witnessed by the Giffords necessarily, but maybe it was a smaller scouting craft rather than the large mining craft seen that the Giffords were abducted by. But it could also lead into the interdimensional theory, if they're 4-dimensional and they're sliding through the third, it depends on how big of a slice, you're seeing at the time.
Right.
So it might have just been, more the edge of it, of the hole, than the middle of the hole.
Wasn't the size of these things similar, though? I mean, the Gifford one was big, and the Phoenix Lights
the Phoenix one,
was big.
the mothership was big.
Yeah, it was monstrous.
I mean, the Giffords one, it's hard to know.
Mile across, they said, or something.
Yeah, the Giffords one, if it
be
really
bigger.
covered that whole valley.
Yeah, so you could be talking a 10-mile.
Yeah, 50 mile. Who knows?
And again, people on 95 and 40 are seeing that shit.
Yeah.
I don't, if it's that big.
Right. But what do you think about this connection, though, Moz, the Phoenix Lights?
Yeah.
Do you think, because it is, geographically, it's regionally the same. It's the Southwest. It's a connected desert.
Well, I will say this. If it went from Henderson to Prescott to Phoenix, it probably went right over Mojave Lake, or possibly to the west of it.
Pretty close.
But it could be going right over it.
Pretty close.
Yeah, it would be on the track.
Mm-hmm.
So this is within the flight plan.
Good point. There you go. And one more thing before we go to bring it all full circle. You know that Mojave Twins geoglyph with the necklace gremlin that we talked about in the beginning of the side trail?
Yep.
It kind of reminded me of something else. The Yucca Man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to do the whole Yucca Man thing now. This is a side trail. It's already probably long enough. And I'm pretty sure Yucca Man's going to be in an episode later on, if not all by himself, then maybe some kind of cryptid palooza or something.
And if not else, Beast from Yucca Flats as well.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. When we do our Arizona monsters or whatever.
Yep.
But I can't help but notice that the stumpy necklace shape is reminiscent of Yucca Man, if I remember correctly, right? Do you think, Maz, that the Yucca Man may just be a stranded glimmer wudgie running around in a ghillie suit or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have not talked very much about the petroglyphs in our area, and I think that needs to be. We have talked a lot about petroglyphs so far, but in this area, I'm trying to think if there's a lot, even some of them north of Winslow, that not a lot of people know about. So we need to start looking at some of these things.
We can go down the creek. I still get some pictures.
Up the creek without a paddle. Yeah,
I should have the pictures somewhere still of that panel of petroglyphs on the creek outside Winslow.
Yeah. Well, some of them people can get to, but I know I have friends that can get to ones that aren't as known.
Oh, cool.
So I have some Indiana Jones type friends.
Yeah, you need a boat and going up the little slot canyon to get to the
Jack's Canyon and Clear Creek.
Yeah. Clear Creek. Yep. All right. So on that note, let's get the yucca out of here, Maz. If everyone could hit some happy fun buttons on the way out, like and subscribe, maybe share with some friends. You can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/monsterloretour. Next up, after this side trail compilation that this is going to be at the end of, is our season 1 finale. We made it. But you don't want to miss the season finale. We're going to wrap up a bunch of stuff, lead into season 2. And then we're going to have some really cool interviews for you for a couple weeks after that. But thanks everybody for coming. Until next time, keep on squatching. Pardon me, had to pause there for a moment, grab a sound bite, because my ears were hungry, so I needed a sound bite. Moz? No.
Shut